I'll tell you the fucking story.
Hell yeah.
So, do you know who JT LeRoy is?
The 2007 Bright Eyes record, Cassadaga, there's a song called Soul Singer in a session band. It's an interesting song with like multiple parts that kind of jump out with specifics, but you don't really get to make total sense of what he's saying in it, like a lot of Bright Eyes songs, honestly. But there was one verse that I remember when I was listening to it back when it came out that sort of jumped out as like, what's he talking about? Like, he's saying something specific there, but I'm going to let Conor Oberst himself read you those lyrics real quick to that verse.
Whatever I said, conversation about the power of myth, the postmodern author that didn't exist in this fictitious world, all reality twists. I was a hopeless romantic, now I'm just turning tricks.
I had a lengthy discussion about the power of myth with a postmodern author who didn't exist in this fictitious world, all reality twists. I was a hopeless romantic, now I'm just turning tricks. Just like that soul.
I was lucky to have a conversation with Conor Oberst recently for the podcast I make called After the Deluge about that song that came up. He brought it up and explained the song, and I'm going to let him just do that right now for you. So here's Conor Oberst talking about the meaning behind the song Soul Singer in a Session Band. I'll pop in midway through to like correct a couple of details because I've since gone down the rabbit hole on all this, but it's mostly just the way Conor spells it out. Here's Conor Oberst.
Well, I'll tell you the fucking story.
Hell yeah.
So, do you know who JT LeRoy is?
Not by name, no.
Okay, JT LeRoy is an author. He put out a book called Sarah and a book called The Heart is Deceitful Above All Things. Anyway, it was a big thing at that time. And sometimes, like, publicists, when they're, like, putting together, like, a record campaign, they'll get, like, authors to, like, write the sort of bio that goes out to the journalists. And my publicist, who's still my publicist, my Chloe Walsh, she's great, but she was like, oh, JT LeRoy wants to write the thing. This is for, like, the Wide Awake Digital Ash stuff. And I was like, cool. I had read the books. Anyway, long story long is JT LeRoy, there's like a documentary about it that I haven't watched, but he is a hoax. He didn't exist. He was also like supposedly transitioning to become a woman, but the books were written by this like 60-year-old couple in San Francisco.
So just to interject very quickly, it wasn't a 60-year-old couple in San Francisco. The story he tells pretty much adds up, but it was a woman who initially wrote under the name JT LeRoy, and when that book took off and got a ton of buzz, she had another woman dress as a man to then play the in-person role of JT LeRoy at events and stuff. And JT LeRoy, as Conor's saying, there was sort of gender ambiguity there too. One of them was writing the books. Another of them was making the public appearances under that name. Neither of them were JT LeRoy, unless you want to think of that as a pen name. The documentary that Conor Oberst is talking about in this interview is fascinating, and you're going to meet people like Courtney Love, Billy Corgan, Bono. I mean, these are like, this person was mixed up with very, very, very famous people. I'm going to let Conor finish from there, but just that's the kind of clarification, but check it out.
So they pulled the wool over everybody's eyes in the literary world and the music world. They hired like an actress to play him when like at public events. So it'd be like twice in New York, I was like, they're like, come meet JT. And I'd go to like the concert or the whatever, and then it's like someone would come out and be like, because he was supposedly, he was supposedly like having like crazy panic attacks and stuff. So they'd be just like, oh, JT can't come out tonight. He's like hiding under a table or whatever. And he was also supposed to, another part of the story is his whole backstory that they invented was that he was like a lot lizard. Like his mom prostituted him at like truck stops. That's like the basis of like both of his books, I think, or Sarah for sure. Like Sarah was his supposed mom. Anyway, this really crazy story, but everyone fell for it.
Yeah.
And for a minute, he was everywhere. Anyway, to do the bio, I basically did an interview. So I talked to JT on the phone for like 2 hours, and we talked about Joseph Campbell, The Power of Myth, which is an interview with Bill Moyers, but it's basically like just a conversation about comparative religion and how all religions have the same sort of themes and blah blah blah. I love The Power of Myth. Anyway, and I don't even know who I was talking to. I don't know if I was talking to the actress or the woman that wrote the books. But they wrote the bio that went out with those records.
If you enjoyed this, there are a bunch more clips of Conor Oberst and a bunch of really good writers and musicians speaking about all the Bright Eyes records right here on this YouTube channel. And there's also a podcast called After the Deluge with an episode about every single Bright Eyes record that you can find on your podcast app. It's called After the Deluge. Take that whole thing in order. We got Tim Kasher from Cursive, Todd Fink of The Faint, a bunch of writers, a bunch of musicians, a bunch of fans. It's great. Thank you.